In 2021, Brentford Football Club were promoted to the Premier League for the first time in 74 years. They had one of the smallest wage bills in the Championship. Their owner was a professional gambler who had made his fortune betting on football using mathematical models. Their stadium held fewer than 13,000 people, and they had closed their youth academy. In that first Premier League season, Brentford finished 13th, above Everton, above Leeds, above Aston Villa. In their second season, they finished 9th. They beat Manchester City, they beat Chelsea, they beat Manchester United. A club that had been in the third tier of English football 8 years earlier was systematically outperforming clubs spending 10 times their budget. This is the story of how they did it, what it means for the rest of the pyramid, and what the honest limits of their model actually are, because Brentford's story is extraordinary, but it is not a magic trick. The circumstances that made it possible are specific, and replicating them is not straightforward. This is the full picture. Matthew Benham grew up watching Brentford. He attended his first match as an 11-year-old in 1979, watching the Bees beat Colchester United in the old third division. He then studied physics at Oxford University. He worked as a derivatives trader, and in 2004 he founded a company called Smartodds, a statistical research firm that used mathematical models to predict sports outcomes for professional gamblers. Smartodds was not a betting shop, it was a data company. It employed mathematicians and statisticians to build models that could identify inefficiencies in betting markets, moments where the bookmakers' odds did not accurately reflect the true probability of a result. It was essentially Moneyball applied to sports betting, and it worked. In 2007, Benham began providing financial backing to Brentford. By 2012, he had become majority owner, paying off the £500,000 of debt the club owed. He then began applying to football what Smartodds had taught him, that emotion is the enemy of good decision-making. That gut instinct leads to systematic error. That data, properly analysed, will consistently outperform traditional judgment, and that a club willing to follow the data rather than the crowd can find an edge that money alone cannot buy. This was not an immediate transformation. Benham has repeatedly said that the data-driven model was introduced gradually rather than as an overnight revolution. There were disagreements with managers who found the analytical constraints uncomfortable. There was resistance within the football world, which has historically been suspicious of anything that challenges the primacy of the eye test and the experienced scout. Building a new way of doing things inside an institution as tradition-bound as a football club takes time and patience, and a very specific kind of committed, long-term owner willing to absorb short-term costs for long-term structural benefit. That description fits Matthew Benham precisely. He is, in that sense, a genuinely unusual figure in English football. When Benham took over Brentford, one of the first things he examined was the youth academy. Most clubs treat their academy as a given. You develop young players. Some make it, most don't. The cost is relatively predictable. Benham looked at the numbers differently. The cost-to-output ratio at Brentford's academy was poor. The club was spending significant sums developing young players who were then being poached by larger London clubs, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, who could offer more money and bigger platforms. Instead, Benham proposed a B-team model. Rather than developing players from childhood, Brentford would recruit players aged 17 to 21 who had been released by Premier League academies, or promising players from lower leagues and overseas. The B-team would develop them. The first team would use them, and when they were ready to move on to a bigger club, Brentford would sell them at a profit. The profits from player sales, Neil Maupay for 20 million, Ollie Watkins for 30 million, Said Benrahma for 30 million, funded the club's rise. Between 2016 and 2023, Brentford generated over £190 million from player sales. That money built the new stadium. It paid the wages. It kept the model going. The B team was not a consolation prize for not having an academy. It was the engine of the entire operation. Brentford's recruitment process begins with a database of approximately 85,000 players from around the world. That database is categorized by position, by playing style, by statistical output. Not just goals and assists, advanced metrics like expected goals, progressive passes, pressure success rates. The kind of data that traditional scouts rarely capture. When Brentford identify a recruitment target, they are not looking for the best player available. They are looking for the best player available relative to what they cost. The question is not, is this player good? But is this player undervalued? Are there statistical indicators that suggest this player will perform at a higher level than their current reputation and price suggests? It is the same logic Benham applied at Smartodds, finding moments where the market is wrong. David Raya was bought from Blackburn Rovers for £3 million. He became Brentford's first-choice goalkeeper and was eventually loaned to Arsenal, one of the biggest clubs in the country, with a permanent option that could net Brentford £35 million. 3 million in, 35 million out. That is not luck. That is the model working exactly as designed. Griffin Park was Brentford's home for 116 years. It sat at a junction of 4 pubs, one on each corner of the ground. It was intimate, atmospheric, and completely inadequate for the ambitions the club now had. The capacity was under 12,000. The hospitality infrastructure was minimal. The revenue ceiling it imposed was a genuine limitation. The GTEC Community Stadium, which opened in 2020, just before Brentford's promotion season, was built on club-owned land adjacent to the M4 motorway in Brentford. It holds 17,000 supporters. More importantly, it has 2,900 hospitality seats, compared to 60 at Griffin Park. It hosts concerts, conferences, events. It is a commercial engine as much as a football ground, and it was funded in significant part by the profits from player sales that the B team model had generated. The stadium is the physical expression of what Benham has built. A club that owns its own ground. A commercial operation that generates revenue independent of league position. A model that is self-sustaining rather than dependent on a benefactor's generosity. This is what sustainable football looks like when all the pieces are in place and working together. Brentford's model has been influential. Clubs like Ipswich Town use data-driven recruitment to win back-to-back promotions from League One to the Premier League. FC Midtjylland in Denmark, also owned by Matthew Benham, applied the same philosophy and won multiple Danish league titles. The idea that statistical analysis can identify undervalued players, reduce financial risk, and generate returns that sustain a club's growth has moved from outsider thinking to mainstream football conversation. But Brentford's success also contains a warning. The model works because of sustained commitment. Benham has invested over £100 million in the club and its infrastructure. He absorbed losses during the championship years. He funded the stadium. He maintained the B team model through the years when it was unpopular. Without a committed, patient owner willing to back the data over the emotion, the model does not exist. Not every club can find a Matthew Benham. What Brentford proves is that intelligence and data can partially substitute for resources. Not entirely, not perfectly, but meaningfully. In a sport where the difference between first and fourth in the Premier League can be £500 million, Brentford showed that a club from League One, using physics graduates and statistical models instead of agents and transfer fees, could compete. That is not a small thing. That is a different way of thinking about what football can be. Subscribe, because the pyramid goes deeper than you think. Welcome to the Football Pyramid.